The Gulf of Mexico, a large oval-shaped oceanic basin, that is located on the southeastern coast of North America and is bounded by the U.S. states of Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, and Florida to the north, northeast and northwest, by the Mexican states of Campeche, Quintana Roo, Tabasco, Tamaulipas, Veracruz, and Yucatan to the south and southwest, and by the island of Cuba to the southeast. The Gulf of Mexico is connected to the Caribbean Sea via the Yucatan Channel, between Cuba and Mexico, and with the Atlantic Ocean through the Straits of Florida, between Cuba and U.S. Often referred to as the Mediterranean of the Americas, the Gulf of Mexico is the ninth largest water body, measuring approximately 1,600 kilometers from west to east and about 900 kilometers from north to south. The Gulf of Mexico is somewhat shallow, along the coastal continental shelf areas, and has an average depth of 1,615 m. Situated in the southwestern part of the Gulf, the Sigsbee Deep, Mexico Basin, is the deepest region in the Gulf of Mexico that has an estimated depth of over 4,384 m. The Gulf of Mexico is believed to contain over 660 quadrillion gallons of water. The Gulf of Mexico is one of the most significant and dynamic marine regions in the world, a vast semi-enclosed body of water that plays a central role in the geography, economy, ecology, and history of the Americas. Bordered by the United States to the north and northeast, Mexico to the west and south, and Cuba to the southeast, the Gulf forms a natural maritime crossroads between North America and the wider Atlantic world. It connects to the Atlantic Ocean through the Straits of Florida and to the Caribbean Sea through the Yucatan Channel. This strategic position has made it a crucial corridor for ocean currents, global trade, cultural exchange, and geopolitical interaction for centuries. Covering roughly 600,000 square miles, the Gulf of Mexico is one of the largest gulfs in the world. Its coastline stretches across sandy beaches, barrier islands, wetlands, mangrove forests, and rocky shores. Along the northern rim, low-lying coastal plains meet the sea, while parts of the western and southern shores are marked by lagoons and river deltas. The Gulf's waters are relatively shallow along much of the continental shelf, especially off the coasts of Texas and Louisiana, but they descend dramatically into deep central basins where depths exceed 5,000 meters. This contrast between shallow margins and deep interior waters contributes to the Gulf's complex circulation patterns and ecological diversity. The Gulf's formation dates back more than 200 million years, when tectonic forces gradually separated ancient land masses and allowed seawater to fill the developing basin. Over geological time, enormous volumes of sediment carried by major rivers have poured into the Gulf, shaping its floor and coastline. These sediments have built extensive deltas and coastal wetlands while also burying organic material that, under heat and pressure, eventually transformed into oil and natural gas. As a result, the Gulf today contains some of the richest offshore energy reserves in the world. Oceanographically, the Gulf of Mexico is strongly influenced by warm tropical waters entering from the Caribbean. These waters form a powerful loop current that circulates within the basin before flowing out toward the Atlantic, contributing to the larger system of currents that help regulate climate. The warmth of these waters makes the Gulf an important source of heat and moisture for the atmosphere. This influence is especially evident during hurricane season, when warm surface temperatures can intensify tropical storms moving across the region. The Gulf's climatic impact extends well beyond its shores, affecting weather patterns in the southeastern United States and even across the Atlantic. Ecologically, the Gulf of Mexico is a region of extraordinary productivity. Its coastal wetlands serve as nurseries for fish, shrimp, crabs, and countless other marine organisms. Seagrass beds and coral communities provide habitat for diverse species, while offshore waters support tuna, snapper, grouper, and migratory species that travel vast distances. Birds use the coastline as a critical stopover during migration, and marine mammals inhabit various parts of the basin. This biological richness has long supported commercial and subsistence fishing, forming the backbone of many coastal economies. At the same time, the Gulf faces significant environmental pressures. Nutrient runoff from agricultural lands carried by rivers into the Gulf can trigger large algal blooms, some of which reduce oxygen levels in the water and create so-called dead zones where marine life struggles to survive. Coastal development, habitat loss, oil spills, and climate change add further stress to the system. Balancing economic use with environmental protection remains one of the central challenges facing the nations that border the Gulf. Economically, the Gulf of Mexico is a powerhouse. Its fisheries supply seafood markets across North America and beyond. Major port cities such as Houston, New Orleans, Veracruz, and Tampa serve as hubs for international shipping, energy services, tourism, and maritime industries. These ports handle vast quantities of goods, from agricultural exports and manufactured products to petroleum and chemicals. Offshore drilling platforms dot parts of the Gulf's horizon, particularly in areas such as the Bay of Campeche, where significant oil fields have been developed. Energy production in the Gulf has contributed substantially to national economies and global energy markets. Tourism is another vital sector. The Gulf Coast is renowned for its white sand beaches, warm waters, and recreational opportunities. Coastal communities rely on visitors who come to swim, fish, sail, and enjoy seaside culture. Resorts, restaurants, and charter boat services form an interconnected web of local enterprise that depends on the health and accessibility of the marine environment. In regions such as the Yucatan Peninsula, tourism tied to the Gulf's coastline blends natural beauty with rich historical and cultural traditions, drawing millions of visitors each year. Historically, the Gulf of Mexico has been a stage for exploration, trade, conflict, and cultural exchange. Indigenous civilizations thrived along its shores long before European arrival, developing maritime skills and trading networks that linked coastal and inland communities. With the arrival of Spanish explorers in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, the Gulf became a gateway to the interior of North America. Colonial powers competed for control of its waters, recognizing its strategic importance for shipping routes and territorial expansion. Over time, the Gulf facilitated the movement of goods, people, and ideas, shaping the cultural landscapes of the surrounding regions. Today, the Gulf of Mexico remains a space where natural forces and human ambitions intersect. It is at once a source of food, energy, transportation, recreation, and identity for millions of people. Its ecosystems provide invaluable services, from storm protection offered by wetlands to climate regulation influenced by ocean currents. Yet it is also vulnerable to overexploitation and environmental change. Understanding the Gulf requires recognizing its complexity. It is not merely a body of water on a map, but a living system deeply interwoven with the histories and futures of the nations that border it. As an introduction, this overview highlights the Gulf of Mexico's geographical setting, geological origins, ecological richness, economic significance, and historical role. In the sections that follow, deeper exploration can reveal the environmental challenges it faces, the policies shaping its management, and the evolving relationship between people and this remarkable marine basin. The modern story of the Gulf of Mexico is increasingly defined by the tension between economic development and environmental sustainability. While the Gulf supports fisheries, shipping, tourism, and energy production on a massive scale, these same activities have contributed to some of the most serious ecological challenges facing any marine region in the world. Understanding these pressures is essential to understanding the Gulf's present condition and its future trajectory. One of the most persistent environmental issues in the Gulf is nutrient pollution, largely carried into its waters by the Mississippi River. This river drains a vast portion of the central United States, collecting runoff from agricultural lands, cities, and industrial zones. Fertilizers rich in nitrogen and phosphorus eventually reach the Gulf, where they stimulate excessive algal growth. When these algal blooms die and decompose, they consume oxygen in the water, creating hypoxic conditions commonly referred to as a dead zone. In some summers, this oxygen-depleted area becomes one of the largest in the world, threatening shrimp, fish, and other marine organisms that cannot survive in low-oxygen environments. The problem illustrates how activities occurring hundreds of miles inland can directly affect coastal ecosystems. Oil exploration and drilling have also left a deep imprint on the Gulf. For decades, offshore platforms have extracted petroleum and natural gas from beneath the seafloor, making the region one of the most productive energy zones globally. However, the risks associated with this industry became dramatically clear during the 2010 Deepwater Horizon disaster. The explosion of the drilling rig led to one of the largest marine oil spills in history, releasing millions of barrels of oil into the Gulf's waters. The spill affected marine life, coastal wetlands, fishing industries, and tourism across the northern Gulf Coast. It also exposed vulnerabilities in offshore drilling technology and regulatory oversight, prompting reforms but leaving long-lasting ecological and economic consequences. Coastal erosion and wetland loss represent another major concern. Particularly along the Louisiana coastline, wetlands have been disappearing at an alarming rate due to a combination of natural subsidence, reduced sediment flow from river management systems, sea level rise, and human development. Wetlands are crucial not only as wildlife habitats but also as natural buffers against storm surges. As they vanish, coastal communities become more vulnerable to hurricanes and flooding. The Gulf's warm waters can intensify tropical storms, and climate change is increasing concerns about stronger and more destructive hurricanes in the future. Climate change more broadly poses complex challenges to the Gulf region. Rising sea surface temperatures can stress coral communities and alter species distribution. Some fish populations may shift their ranges, affecting commercial fisheries. Ocean acidification, caused by increased carbon dioxide absorption, threatens shell-forming organisms such as oysters and certain plankton species that form the base of the marine food web. Sea level rise increases the risk of saltwater intrusion into freshwater systems and agricultural lands along the coast. These changes are gradual but cumulative, reshaping the Gulf's ecosystems in ways that scientists are still working to fully understand. Urbanization and industrial growth along the coastline further complicate environmental management. Major metropolitan areas such as Houston and New Orleans depend heavily on the Gulf for shipping and commerce. Ports handle enormous volumes of cargo, while petrochemical plants and refineries line parts of the coast. These industries generate employment and economic growth but also contribute to pollution risks, habitat fragmentation, and accidental spills. Balancing economic vitality with ecological health remains an ongoing challenge for policymakers at local, state, and national levels. International cooperation is another key factor in the Gulf's future. Because the Gulf is bordered by the United States, Mexico, and Cuba, environmental management requires cross-border collaboration. Fish stocks migrate across national boundaries, ocean currents circulate pollutants beyond political lines, and hurricanes do not respect borders. Agreements on fisheries management, oil spill response, scientific research, and conservation efforts are essential to maintaining the Gulf as a shared resource. Despite these challenges, there are significant restoration and conservation efforts underway. Wetland restoration projects aim to rebuild barrier islands and marshes using sediment diversions and engineered solutions. Stricter safety regulations have been implemented in offshore drilling operations since 2010. Fisheries management programs have introduced catch limits and monitoring systems designed to prevent overfishing and promote sustainable harvests. Scientific research institutions along the Gulf Coast continue to study marine ecosystems, climate trends, and pollution patterns to inform better decision-making. Public awareness has also grown. Coastal residents, environmental organizations, fishing communities, and industry stakeholders increasingly recognize that the Gulf's long-term prosperity depends on ecological resilience. Sustainable tourism, responsible energy development, improved agricultural practices upstream, and investment in renewable energy alternatives all form part of broader conversations about the region's future. Looking ahead, the Gulf of Mexico stands at a crossroads. It remains a region of immense natural wealth and strategic importance, yet it faces mounting environmental pressures linked to human activity and global climate change. The choices made in the coming decades regarding energy production, coastal planning, conservation funding, and international cooperation will shape whether the Gulf continues to thrive as a productive and diverse marine system or becomes increasingly degraded. In this sense, the Gulf of Mexico is both a resource and a responsibility. Its waters connect nations, sustain livelihoods, and influence climate systems far beyond its shores. Protecting its ecological balance while supporting economic development requires innovation, cooperation, and long-term commitment. The future of the Gulf will depend not only on natural forces but also on the collective actions of the societies that depend upon it. Beyond its environmental and economic dimensions, the Gulf of Mexico occupies a position of immense strategic, cultural, and geopolitical importance. Its waters are not only a source of natural wealth but also a maritime arena that has influenced military strategy, international trade routes, cultural exchange, and national identity for centuries. In many ways, the Gulf serves as a bridge linking North America to the Caribbean and the wider Atlantic world. From a strategic standpoint, the Gulf has long been vital to national security and global commerce. The ports along its coastline rank among the busiest in the Western Hemisphere. The Houston Ship Channel, for example, connects inland industries to global markets, making it one of the most significant energy and cargo hubs in the world. Similarly, the New Orleans port complex serves as a gateway for agricultural exports flowing down the Mississippi River system. These shipping corridors allow grain from the American Midwest, petroleum products from refineries, and manufactured goods from industrial centers to reach international destinations efficiently. The Gulf's location also makes it strategically important for naval operations. Throughout history, control of Gulf waters has meant influence over trade routes and access to the interior of North America. During the colonial period, European powers fought for dominance over coastal territories. In the 19th century, the Gulf was a critical theater during conflicts such as the Mexican-American War and the American Civil War. Even in modern times, naval bases and Coast Guard operations along the Gulf Coast play key roles in border security, anti-smuggling efforts, disaster response, and maritime safety. Culturally, the Gulf of Mexico has fostered a unique blending of traditions shaped by indigenous civilizations, European colonization, African heritage, and Caribbean influence. Along the coasts of Mexico, United States, and Cuba, communities developed distinctive cuisines, music, architecture, and maritime customs deeply connected to the sea. Gulf seafood, shrimp, oysters, snapper, and crab forms the foundation of regional dishes such as Cajun and Creole cuisine in Louisiana and coastal specialties in Veracruz and the Yucatan. Music and folklore along the Gulf Coast reflect centuries of exchange. In Louisiana, African rhythms blended with European musical traditions, contributing to the development of jazz and blues. In eastern Mexico, coastal communities developed musical forms that reflect both Spanish and indigenous roots. Cuban port cities, facing the Gulf, became cultural crossroads linking the Caribbean to North America. These shared maritime experiences have created a sense of identity that transcends borders, even as each nation maintains its own cultural character. The Gulf also plays a crucial role in global energy markets. Offshore oil fields and coastal refineries supply petroleum products not only for domestic use but for export worldwide. Energy infrastructure including pipelines, liquefied natural gas terminals, and shipping facilities connects Gulf production to international demand. Disruptions in the region, whether from hurricanes or industrial accidents, can affect fuel prices and supply chains far beyond North America. This interconnection underscores how deeply integrated the Gulf is within the global economy. Tourism continues to expand the Gulf's global presence. Beach destinations in Florida, Texas, and along Mexico's Gulf Coast attract millions of visitors annually. Coastal cities combine maritime heritage with modern hospitality industries. Cruise ships travel routes linking Gulf ports to Caribbean destinations, reinforcing the region's role as a tourism gateway. The scenic beauty of white sand beaches, turquoise waters, and vibrant coastal culture enhances the Gulf's international reputation. Scientific research in the Gulf has also gained global importance. Marine biologists, oceanographers, climate scientists, and geologists study its currents, ecosystems, and seafloor formations to better understand larger Earth systems. The Gulf Stream, which is partly fed by circulation from the Gulf, influences weather patterns across the Atlantic and even Europe. Research conducted in Gulf waters contributes to global climate models, hurricane forecasting improvements, and marine conservation strategies. However, the Gulf's strategic and economic value also makes it vulnerable to geopolitical tension. Questions about maritime boundaries, energy exploration rights, and environmental responsibility require diplomatic negotiation among neighboring nations. Cooperation agreements on oil spill response, fisheries management, and scientific collaboration demonstrate that shared interests often outweigh conflict, yet these relationships require ongoing dialogue and trust. Looking toward the future, the Gulf of Mexico stands as both a symbol of opportunity and a test of sustainable development. It embodies the intersection of nature and industry, culture and commerce, local tradition and global influence. The region's resilience has been demonstrated repeatedly in the face of hurricanes, economic shifts, and environmental disasters. Coastal communities rebuild, industries adapt, and ecosystems slowly recover, reflecting a dynamic relationship between people and the sea. Ultimately, the Gulf of Mexico is more than a regional body of water, it is a global crossroads. Its shipping lanes connect continents, its energy fuels economies, its ecosystems sustain biodiversity, and its cultures enrich national identities. As environmental challenges intensify and global demand for resources evolves, the Gulf's importance will only grow. The responsibility to manage it wisely, balancing development with conservation, national interest with international cooperation, will define its legacy for generations to come. As the Gulf of Mexico moves deeper into the 21st century, attention increasingly turns toward governance, technological innovation, and long-term sustainability. The Gulf's future will not depend solely on natural processes, but on policy decisions, scientific advancement, regional cooperation, and public engagement. Managing such a vast and economically critical marine region requires coordination among governments, industries, scientists, and coastal communities. Governance of the Gulf is shared primarily by the United States, Mexico, and Cuba. Each country regulates its territorial waters and exclusive economic zones, overseeing fisheries, energy exploration, shipping, and environmental protection. However, because marine ecosystems and ocean currents do not recognize political borders, collaborative frameworks are essential. Bilateral and trilateral agreements have addressed oil spill response coordination, fisheries conservation, and scientific data sharing. These cooperative efforts highlight the Gulf as a shared resource whose protection benefits all bordering nations. Technological innovation is playing an increasingly important role in shaping the Gulf's future. Advances in offshore drilling technology have improved efficiency and safety standards since the Deepwater Horizon disaster. Enhanced blowout preventers, remote-operated vehicles, and real-time monitoring systems aim to reduce the risk of catastrophic spills. At the same time, renewable energy initiatives are beginning to gain attention. Offshore wind potential in certain Gulf areas is being studied, and coastal states are investing in solar and other clean energy alternatives to diversify regional energy portfolios. Scientific research institutions along the Gulf Coast continue to expand monitoring systems that track ocean temperature, salinity, currents, and storm development. Satellite observations and underwater sensors provide real-time data that improve hurricane forecasting and climate modeling. This research not only protects coastal populations but also contributes to global scientific knowledge. Universities and marine laboratories in cities such as Galveston and Tampa are central to ongoing marine studies, fisheries management research, and coastal restoration innovation. Restoration initiatives have become one of the defining features of Gulf policy in recent years. Large-scale projects focus on rebuilding wetlands, restoring oyster reefs, and reinforcing barrier islands that protect inland communities from storm surge. Sediment diversion programs aim to reconnect the Mississippi River with coastal marshes, allowing natural land-building processes to resume. These efforts reflect a growing understanding that environmental health is directly tied to economic resilience and public safety. Community involvement has also emerged as a critical element in sustainable management. Fishing communities, tourism operators, indigenous groups, and environmental organizations increasingly participate in planning processes. Public awareness campaigns highlight the importance of reducing plastic waste, limiting nutrient runoff, and supporting sustainable seafood practices. The recognition that local livelihoods depend on long-term ecological balance has encouraged broader engagement in conservation efforts. Education plays a transformative role as well. Schools and universities throughout Gulf states integrate marine science, climate education, and environmental stewardship into their curricula. By fostering a new generation of scientists, policymakers, and informed citizens, the region builds capacity for future problem solving. This human investment may ultimately prove as important as technological innovation in ensuring the Gulf's sustainability. Economic diversification represents another pathway toward resilience. While oil and gas remain central to the Gulf economy, investment in technology, shipping innovation, tourism development, and renewable energy helps reduce reliance on a single sector. Ports such as Veracruz continue modernizing infrastructure to remain competitive in global trade, while coastal tourism markets emphasize eco-friendly travel experiences that prioritize environmental protection. Despite progress, uncertainties remain. Climate change continues to influence storm intensity, sea level rise, and marine ecosystem shifts. Global energy transitions may alter the Gulf's role in fossil fuel production. International trade patterns could reshape shipping flows. The Gulf's ability to adapt to these evolving conditions will depend on flexible governance systems, sustained research investment, and regional cooperation. The Gulf of Mexico stands as one of the most influential marine regions in the world, a body of water shaped by ancient geological forces and centuries of human interaction. It has served as a corridor for exploration, trade, and cultural exchange. It sustains fisheries, powers economies through energy production, supports tourism, and influences weather systems far beyond its shores. Its ecosystems nurture extraordinary biodiversity, from coastal wetlands to deep-sea habitats. At the same time, the Gulf faces profound challenges. Nutrient pollution, habitat loss, oil spills, climate change, and coastal erosion test the resilience of both natural systems and human communities. The lessons of past disasters have prompted reforms, while ongoing scientific research continues to expand understanding of this complex marine environment. What ultimately defines the Gulf of Mexico is its interconnectedness. Rivers from the heart of North America flow into it. Ocean currents link it to the Atlantic. Trade routes tie it to global markets. Cultural traditions along its coasts reflect centuries of exchange. Decisions made inland can shape its waters, and storms formed over its surface can affect distant regions. The future of the Gulf depends on balance between development and conservation, national interests and international cooperation, short-term economic gain and long-term sustainability. If managed wisely, it will remain a thriving center of commerce, culture, and ecological richness. If neglected, its degradation would ripple outward through economies and ecosystems alike. In essence, the Gulf of Mexico is both a resource and a responsibility. Its history reveals human ambition and adaptation, its present demands innovation and stewardship, its future will reflect the collective choices of the nations and communities that depend upon it. Thank you for watching this video.